55 Know-Nothing riots. They said 22 is a conservative estimate of how many that had died. 22 had died. But you had Martin Spaulding, a Catholic bishop, who said over 100 had died. So who's right? A man named Fritz was shot in the chest. John Feller was stabbed 7 times. John Vogt was murdered. A man named Kaiser was killed. 3 sons from a German mother named Long watched 2 of her sons burn up in a house fire, and then the 3rd one was shot 13 times. So how many people we got? We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. I got 22 right now. So I've listed 22 of them on just what I've been able to find with Google. And these are, not counting ones we don't know. And I don't know why there hasn't been a comprehensive list. 22, that just seems like that's easy to compile, So there's, let's see, there's Paul Roth-Hop from Germantown, Joseph Allison, wounded in the head, Dennis Riordan. I'm going to list all this in the description. John Chivers, George Berg. And not all of them were Irish and Germans, too. Some of them were the Protestants. Theodore Rhodes, Mr. Graham. Actually, the man named Fritz is listed twice. So actually I got about 20 of them. So that's that's right. That's like so close. That's that's like right there. So to assume that the conservative estimates of 22, I'm pretty sure 22 is wrong. 22 dead is wrong. 100 might be too much, but we don't have an actual body count, so we don't actually have a list. Theodore Rhodes, Mr. Graham, John Hudson, Francis, Patrick Quinn, plus 4 more. Quinn's Row, there was a Quinn, I think he had a distillery or a bar or something and a bunch of houses. This rich man named Francis or Patrick Quinn, they burnt his entire establishment out. When he was trying to go out, they shot him and pushed him back into the fire. 5 men were reported to have been killed, but the fires raged on all night. 12 buildings, whole families were murdered and devoured in the fire. So we can assume that there's more. The Reverend Carl Bose, as a historian, you got to have concrete proof, right? So as a scientist, I leave open the possibility. But my history doesn't prove it, but my science, I leave the option open because it just seems like, they only say 4 more. They don't even list the people who died. They say 5 people died in the fires. Who are these people? They didn't even list their names. So Reverend Carl Boswell, the Catholic Church of the Immaculate Conception, fatally wounded by a hail of flying stones on the way to visit a dying parishioner in the riots. What had happened, okay, he dies like months later, but that's something too. So not only do you have the people that was murdered that day, but you have the people that was murdered afterwards. That's what they would do with anything. So, say the nuclear bomb, when they dropped it on Hiroshima, you didn't just, there was the people that immediately had been roasted and murdered, but then there was the people that had died later on to their wounds because of the bomb. You would associate all those deaths with the atomic bomb. So the same thing with the 1855 Know-Nothing riots. He died. The rocks hit him on the side, on his hip, and then he forms an abscess and then dies 3 months later from injuries and typhoid fever. So an Irishman discharged a pistol at the back of a man's head, was shot, and then hung, but he survived both punishments. So supposedly an Irishman tried to shoot at the back of a man's head. They said he was shot, and then they hung him. And then I also heard several times that there would be they would be beating up a guy or shooting a guy, and then they would take him to jail. They would shoot him several times or hung, and then he would be the one that would go to jail. Another guy, German, that was chasing him with a pitchfork, trying to stab this dude with a pitchfork. So that's just the sickness. I mean, this is insanity. But why were the Louisvillians doing this? Why were the Louisvillian white Anglo-Saxon Protestants? Why are the Louisvillian Protestants sitting there trying to murder the Irish immigrant Catholics? And the Germans, why were they doing this? What was so bad about what they were doing? You had the 1848ers, you had the 1830ers, then you had the 1870ers, right? So you actually have all these different waves of immigrants that are coming into town. But the after the 1855 Know-Nothing riots that happened in Louisville, you don't have any Germans around at all because, I mean, who wants to be around bunch of people that want to murder you and kill you, and they also aren't voting. They're not going to the polls anymore. So they it's like the Mississippi Plan. It kept the black people from voting. The Mississippi Plan did. So you have the 1855 Know Nothing riots, which pushed the Germans out of town, and they weren't welcome back in. So basically, Louisville lost out on a lot of things up until 1861. The Civil War kind of brought the Louisville back to the German, because the Germans were for the Union, and a lot of the government in Louisville was for the Union too. So that brought Union Germans back into the fold, and the Irish people back into the fold, because there was actually, there was a lot of good people that were here too. So yeah, 1855 Know Nothing riots were pushed all the Germans out for about 6 years. They went to St. Louis and all these other different cities, never to come back again, because clearly, I mean, why? It's a pogrom, right? It's a pogrom. It was a violent mob who was designed to persecute or to sort of put violence on this group, and then once they did not vote, then they didn't have power. Therefore, that was what they didn't want. They wanted their Know Nothing candidates win, and they wanted them to win at all costs, and they wanted all their boys to get in on there too. So how do you get the slate? How do you get that ticket to win? Well, once you win, then you just scare the shit out of everybody. Get your people to vote, and anybody who would vote against you, scare them away. So they put thugs up at the 8 wards and all the polling precincts, and made sure that the Irish and the German people wouldn't vote. Henry Clay would go on to blame the abolitionists and the foreign Catholics. So he said foreign Catholics and abolitionists are the reason he lost to Polk. And which is fascinating. Polk is the one who's going to declare the Mexican-American War. So, immigrants and the Catholics are the one that pushes Polk to expand America, and steal all the Mexican land. So, let's see, where am I going with all this? 1855 Know Nothing riots. I have some items up here. The Know Nothing Party used to be called the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, right? It's an oath-bound secret society in New York City created in 1849 by Charles Allen to protest the rise of the Irish, Roman Catholic, and German immigration into the United States. To join the order, a man had to be at least 21 years old, a Protestant, and willing to obey the order's dictates without question. Members were nativist citizens opposed to immigration, especially by Catholics. They saw Catholics as dangerous, illegal voters under the control of the Pope in Rome. Members invariably responded to questions about the OSSB by claiming that they knew nothing. This practice caused newspaper editor Horace Greeley to label them know-nothings. So the know-nothings are being defined by the enemy, which I don't mind, because they're the know-nothings. They know nothings, they know nothing, and they are secretive too. So it's kind of a double entendre. OSSB would eventually form the nucleus of the nativist Know Nothing movement, ran candidates 1855-86 under the American Party tickets. According to the American pageant, older stock Americans professed to believe that in due time the alien riffraff would establish the Catholic Church at the expense of Protestantism and would introduce popish idols. The noisier American nativists rallied for political action. They promoted a lurid literature of exposure, much of it pure fiction. The authors, sometimes posing as escaped nuns, described the shocking sins they imagined in the cloisters concealed, including the secret burial of babies. One of these sensational books, Maria Monk's Awful Disclosures, 1836, sold over 300,000 copies. Maria Monk's Awful Disclosures. So here's what is happening behind closed doors of the nunneries. And actually, it's not bad that they actually, were questioning. There's a lot of shit that the Catholic Church has done. And we've even seen recent, shit that they've been doing behind fucking closed doors. So, I don't know. When you have the veil of secrecy, it allows people to use their imagination, and they imagine all sorts of things. So I wonder if it's better to know or to leave it. Skulls and bones. What do they actually do? We don't know. So is that better that we don't know? Because if we actually know that they all, piss and jerk off on one another, and if that's their initiation process, is that better? Does that make me feel better? Like, I don't know. I don't know which one's better. I mean, if it's horrid, it's bad, so you wouldn't want anybody to know. But if it's not that bad, you'd want them to know, so you wouldn't allow their imagination to run wild. And there's only like 800 skulls and bones members at any time on the planet at one time. 800. in Yale. It's remarkable that actually you would have two members of the same secret society that would run against each other in 2004. Skulls and bones. It's incredible. Only 800 members are alive at one time. And then once one person gets into a position of power, they help other people get into positions of power. That's sort of how their organization works. Since the Order of the Star-Spangled Banner, the Star-Spangled Banner were the ones that became, it's a secret society, but eventually they became the Know-Nothings, and then there's violence that happens all throughout the United States of America. I should have actually started out with this. I'm going to start out my next video with this election day. They have this, the Louisville Anzinger. It's translated by Joseph R. Reinhardt, but this is what they were telling the Germans on election day. But the Louisville Anzinger on August 5th, the day before, 1855. And they're talking about how the Germans love freedom. And the reason they had left their country, come to America, was for freedom. They were against the tyrannical and the despotism, military, everything that they saw, the 1848 revolutions. These are Karl Marx inspired. Since people were, experiment with self-government and learning how to be free and being, free with one another and experimenting that and figuring it out. And so, yeah. I think I'm going to take a break right now because I want to start out with all this stuff and I don't want to, I guess I'll end with it and then start off with it. Okay. We have, let's see, I have the Emma Lazarus, New York City, 1883. So you got the poem on top of the, or on the Statue of Liberty. They said they welcome all the immigrants, right? So they say here's the poem by Emma Lazarus, New York City, 1883. At least like 10 or 12 lines of it. It says task 3. So not like the brazen giant of Greek fame with conquering limbs astride from land to land. So I'm not even sure what we're talking about here. Greek fame. So not like the brazen giant of Greek fame with conquering limbs astride from land to land. Here at our sea-washed sunset gates shall stand a mighty woman with a torch whose flame is the imprisoned lightning, and her name, Mother of Exiles. From her beacon hand glows worldwide welcome, and her mild eyes command the air-bridged harbor that twin cities frame. Keep ancient lands your storied pomp, cries she with silent lips. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to breathe free, the wretched refuse of your teeming shore. Send these, the homeless tempest toast to me. I lift my lamp beside the golden door. So basically, send me your crap, right? Come on, Mother Russia, Mother Sweden, give me your crap. I'll take all your crap. That's what America is saying to the whole world. Mother of Exiles. If you're in exile, run to the Statue of Liberty. That's where freedom is at. Not like the brazen giant of Greek fame. So fuck the Greeks. Is that what we're saying? Fuck antiquity. With conquering limbs astride from land to land. So instead of conquering from land to land, you come, I don't know. Seems like we've been imperializing from the very beginning. But if we're an imperialist nation and we're a refuge, we're a place for refugees and everybody else, then it seems like we could actually we could be a country that says we are a nation of immigrants because we are. Or we could go with Bill O'Reilly and all these old white men fighting for our country, man. Everything's being lost. And you know what sucks about that is that's why I'm talking about the Whigs and the Know-Nothings. Eventually, or the Libertarians, eventually the Republican Party is going to take a new shape. And they're going to look differently. And they're going to look like what? Some bureaucratic, nothing. You can't tell what they are about. Just some lying piece of shit. Some fucking moderate, or some fake Democrat. Who's going to be, what are the Republicans going to do? They're going to find another actor? So election day is tomorrow, and these are the last words we're able to direct out to fellow German citizens in this highly important matter. We ask you to consider them and treat them as is proper for a free German man. Freedom is the important possession of which out best and classic poets sing the praises of. Freedom is what we are in the old fatherland, the beautiful regions of the Rhine Valley so zealously sought to strive for. So they wanted freedom, right? This is what the Louisville Anzinger is saying. That's why they're here in Louisville, because they wanted freedom. They wanted freedom in Germany, but they didn't get it, so they came to Louisville to get freedom. The ability to them, and freedom was just the ability to vote, just to file for the vote. No nothings could have allowed them to vote, and then they would have had democratic legitimacy. But instead they used violence, and now the whole thing was just shot. You know, that's not a free country, using violence to get your way.